Hi, Chrissy. So nice to meet. This is where we usually work. You there in Western Australia and me here in Cape Town. So we meet like this, but it's really nice to invite other people to join us who are interested. Yeah.
Wonderful. Great to see you guys as ever. And here it's heading for 5 o'clock in the evening. So great to know that you're getting started on your day.
Yeah, heading towards 11 o'clock here in the morning. So that's really
Okay.
So we decided that we would meet today and just talk about the Sunrise Readers for those who are interested, and just talk about what they are. So we never expected them to become such a successful resource as they have done in Zimbabwe over the years, and probably about 30 years. Where the Sunrise Readers have been used as the major reading scheme in that country and have really facilitated literacy. What an honor and privilege. So, Chrissy, would you explain what a reading scheme actually is?
Yeah, well, a reading scheme is a collection of books in a series that have been carefully compiled. So in our experience, that was looking at things like the vocabulary, words that would be familiar with the children, and then developing from a really beginner level and going right through to more advanced levels. I imagine it in my mind a bit like stepping stones that show the pathway, and as the children move through the different levels, they gain in their expertise in reading as they go along.
Yes, exactly. So it happens almost seamlessly, one level of reading to the other. And it's been amazing to have that feedback from the teachers in Zimbabwe. Is that
absolutely,
children just learn to read using the Sunrise Readers. So just what grades do our Sunrise Readers apply to? We often get asked that question.
So when we wrote them, we decided on 10 books for each of the first two grades. So grade 1 and 2 had 10 books each that we focused on that level of skill for the children. And then subsequently, you wrote books for grades 3, 4, and 5 that would just advance them and take them that bit further. So we found that for children using the books, they progressed at their own level and their own speed, whether they finished only 6 books in the first year or finished all 10, it was all fine. They could progress to the next ones, as you say, seamlessly.
Yes, and interestingly enough, of course, the Sunrise Readers are a reading scheme that are for children learning English. And so we found that in schools where English is not the first language or the major language, that children will start using the Sunrise Readers when they are learning in English. So for example, here in South Africa, they would start probably reading them in grade 3. Yeah. And also in conversation, and certainly in our experience over the years, with the first 10 Sunrise Readers, and I've got the revised ones here. Have you got the original ones there?
I have.
Yeah. First 5, maybe.
First 5, I got.
Chrissy has the original ones, and I have the revised ones here. So what you would find is an average to good reader would often be able to complete 10 of the Sunrise Readers in their first year of reading English. But then what we also found in some of the private schools where they had a number of reading schemes available, so our government schools in Zim usually only had the Sunrise Readers. That's all that was available. So their average to really capable readers would finish 10 in the first year. And in the private schools where they were reading maybe 4 or 5 different reading schemes, they would read book 1 of the Sunrise Readers, book 1 of another reading scheme, book 1 of another reading scheme, book 1 of another reading scheme. And so because they were reading so much variety, they would possibly only get to book 6 or book 7 by the end of the year. Although all of the really, really competent readers would have run ahead, and some of them would even be reading our books 11. I do have our original grade 2 or second year books here. Here's just a few of them. They're pink in color. And so we went to book 20, as Chrissy said. And then I do have some of the grade 3, 4, or 5, the blue books and the red books. There were 3 of each available.
Okay.
So yeah, Sunrise Readers goes all the way from grade 1 to grade 4 or 5. Yeah. So looking back, as we were saying earlier, we never dreamed that the Sunrise Readers would become the national reading scheme for Zimbabwe. And once they were approved by the Ministry of Education, it took only a few years, really, for them to become popular and a successful reading team with the teachers. And we're so grateful to that marketing team of Longman Zimbabwe, who were our publishers, because they really worked hard and got the Sunrise Readers into the hands of the teachers and the parents.
Yes.
And then it was just, I can't remember what year, but just a few years ago, well, quite a few years ago, we learned that government schools in Zim were requiring that children had the first 3 Sunrise Readers books, 1, 2, and 3, when they entered grade 1. So that was absolutely amazing. So Chrissy, as an early childhood teacher, grades 1 and 2 teacher yourself, trained for that, what do you think? Why do you think the Sunrise Readers became so popular with teachers?
Well, I think partly and probably initially because they were written by teachers. And I think we both knew our craft of teaching very well. And so we started with that in mind. We had experience of other reading schemes, and we were able to draw what worked from some of those and put together something unique for our African-based country of Zimbabwe. We were very careful about the introduction of vocabulary. We introduced words systematically, practiced them each step along the way, and encouraged teachers in using the teacher's guide, if schools had access to that, on tips on how to get that whole process happening, just from our own background, our own experience. And that basically, starting really small, stepping stones through getting incrementally more difficult, and expanding their skills as they went. In tandem alongside that, encouraging teachers to teach phonics and understanding the sounds of letters and how to write them down, and equally what that scribble on the page is, decoding that into what sound of word it is. Yeah. So using the language, and as we've said, primarily for English-speaking children, but we found, of course, across the board that second language learners were also learning to read in English in their schools.
In fact, most of our readers then became second language. So although when we had started, we thought we were writing for urban schools, children in urban schools where English was the medium, but we have discovered that over these last 30 years, it's been, I guess the vast majority of children have been those in the rural areas. So what an honor and privilege. I remember that when we learned to read, and when our children, actually, who are now adults, learned right at the beginning, all the reading books were not really relevant, the ones that were available. And you and I really felt that our children in Africa, the children of Africa, deserved to be able to read books that were relevant. How do you think we achieved this?
Well, I think we made sure to be as inclusive in terms of age, gender, and ethnicity, race, across the many different aspects of all those things represented in the culture in which we lived. So making sure that grandparents and elderly people were depicted and respected. There were little brothers and sisters, big brothers and sisters, older relatives. We had the children visiting a farm. We've been in the revision process, we've been a lot more focused on depicting more rural scenes and stories, based on feedback from the teachers that we connected with in our research before we started the revision. We got some great feedback from the teachers. So I think that's helped the upcoming generations to really connect with both rural town things. There are kids in rural areas that may never see a shop front like the urban kids would see, and same for some of the urban kids that they would never have seen how animals are cared for in rural settings and things like that. So yeah, trying to portray both.
And I just remember, because we were actually teachers, and then at the time we started writing, I was a mother, and then when you were using the Sunrise Readers, you were a mother then. And I remember we just took bits out of their daily lives and things that they enjoyed, things that our children would relate to. And of course, our children had the privilege of growing up in a multicultural society. And so we were able to draw glimpses from, and I agree with you. I think that's really what made our books. Children could identify with what these children were doing. And I just feel at home with them. It's been great having feedback from some adults now who learned to read on them and saying, Tatenda and Chipo and David and Jenny, they became our mates, man. It was great. So there's something else that we really believe in. I know that when we sat down to write the Sunrise Readers, I had not done my UNISA degree by then. I had my teacher's diploma, but you and I knew that reading material needed to have values, that education without values, which is what I learned during my education degree later on, that education without values is just head knowledge, that just if teachers aren't aware of it, they are also imparting values in their teaching, their own values. You can't help it. And so we intentionally included character building stories. And we say that, I think, at the back of our books. It says here, the Sunrise Readers are a delightful series of carefully structured reading books to be used in the teaching of reading in the first years of a child's education. The vocabulary accumulates gradually, and the children are soon reading lively, interesting stories that are written and selected for their character building emphasis. The Sunrise Readers are relevant to the children's environment and experiences. So that's what we've been talking about now. So just thinking about the values that we included, let's talk about those.
Yeah, I think we set out to portray the children as normal, everyday kids without sort of hyping them up to be super good, or so they will tease their siblings, they will get into trouble with their mum or dad, and have to apologize, things like that. So using that vehicle of the stories of those children in their family units and in their community, we wanted to portray the very things that we hold dear ourselves. And as you said, the teaching is never value neutral. We impart our own values or somebody else's values if we're not intentional about what we do want to impart. So having that framework at the start of wanting to impart respect for the older folk in our lives, respect for the environment, patching up if you've fallen out, forgiveness and restoration of relationships, things like that, while not using those great big words, would be portrayed in the stories.
Yeah, we were careful not to be preachy. Hey, we were careful not to be preachy, but just to impart them. I know that we, respecting the environment, I mean, a lot of these values you will definitely find in the Zimbabwe curriculum. And then because I've written other stuff that had to be right to the curriculum, and so these values are in there, and I would be pretty sure that they are the values that we are teaching in the other nations in Africa as well. We knew it was important, as you were saying, family values, friendship values, and faith. That's important to us as well. And then universal values of honesty and integrity. We really wanted those as well. Kindness and sincerity. Yeah. Anything else that we?
Yeah. So things like accepting one another, tolerating differences and embracing diversity, being able to recognize that everybody's unique and different, and that's not only is it okay, it's important, and to be encouraging acceptance of those different things, and of course having a passion for life and for what you're doing, finding that sense of purpose as we grow and learn and change. So yeah, all those things are having that hope for the future.
Positivity. And I think the one thing that we've absolutely been thrilled about in the new Sunrise Readers is the brilliant artwork, which we'll talk about in a little while. But the pictures are so happy. I mean, look at this one of Tatenda and Chipo. They just bring a smile to your face on the very front.
Yeah.
Our artists have done such a brilliant job.
Fabulous.
You can't help smiling. I mean, look, there are smiles everywhere. So we just, life is quite tough, and we just want to bring some joy to the children. Yeah. So I think that we are trying to do those values of resilience and perseverance, determination and grit. And then, as you were saying, inclusivity. We've now that we've had the opportunity to revise these books, we've included the girl's friend Tari, who's in a wheelchair, and we're trying to, that whole thing of acceptance. There's so much we could talk about, but we're going to be out of time soon. So let us finish off with the artwork, Chrissy. What do you love about the artwork, and why is artwork important in early childhood readers?
Well, I think, like you said, we've been really delighted with the artists that have worked on the new Sunrise Readers in particular. We've been very fortunate to have all the stories about the children have been illustrated by the same artist. So there's a continuity, they're instantly recognizable as who's who in the stories. We've included African folk tales, fairy tales, and face stories, and each of those artists sort of have been allocated to those different genre, if you like, and have done a brilliant job of depicting those different stories. And I think, in my experience, the artwork is crucial, especially at the beginning, because the text is pretty boring. Look, oh, look. It doesn't really tell a story. But the children can look at the picture, see what's going on. A skilled teacher will draw out from them, what can you see in the picture, what's happening in the background, what do you see on the child's shelf, what do you think will happen next? Those kinds of in preparation. Children can say, and concepts are understood much more clearly than what they can read. So they can look at, like, the picture of the boat and anticipate the frog is going to hop on it, and see the little kingfisher in the bulrushes, and figure out, without even using words, but they can see it and understand there's so much more going on in the story. And I remember your son Michael standing next to me, giggling so much that he could hardly read, because he loved what was happening in the pictures, and it had come alive for him. And like you said, some of these children think Tatenda and David are my friend, because they get to know them so well from the stories. And I think it supports discussion. You can draw out so much from the picture. Like I said before, we've inserted incidental text in the pictures. So there are words in the supermarket, there's milk and cheese and words like that around. And so it has the potential to extend a capable reader who will be able to look at those words in the picture and say, I can read that, and work some stuff out that they're not maybe expected to read, but they find it out as they go.
I was just trying
to... So I think the artwork's really important as a vehicle for the story as well.
That's what Chrissy was talking about, just some incidental words. Artwork. So right. Of course, the pictures in the beginning, when the children don't have much vocabulary, the pictures are telling the large part of the story. So a teacher or a parent would never hurry the child to the next page. They would talk about, for example, Tatenda, and what are his favorite toys, what are his interests and passions, how old do they think he is? I mean, there's so much to talk about to build the story from the pictures. And we, as you said, we've been really privileged to have such brilliantly skilled artists just bringing the artwork alive. So Chrissy, to finish up with, I think I think the Sunrise readers have proved themselves. I mean, that's, as we talk about a reading scheme, we're not trying to promote a new, untried product. They have a reputation. They've got an amazing track record of teaching generations in Zimbabwe to read. But I think that we are freshly inspired and delighted for this new generation, that we can draw on that huge wealth of success, and then with the revised Sunrise readers, bring in a whole lot of modern context. Plus, you and I over these last 30 years have learned so much more about teaching and about reading, and we've had so much more experience in it, that we know that these books are really going to fly, and that for the next generations they're going to just be as successful as they were and have been. And just, it's been a delight, hasn't it, to talk to people who are now adults who learn to read with the Sunrise readers.
Yeah, that's right. I've had a couple of occasions here in Western Australia. Two of my co-workers are both Zimbabwean women with 3 or 4 kids of their own. And we got chatting, and where are you from, and where are you from, and, you know, this sort of conversation. And over time, I told them that, I asked them if they'd learned to read using the Sunrise readers, and they were scratching their memory, and oh yes, they remembered. And the one lady's name was Tatenda, and so she's like, I was Tatenda, and the boy in the book was Tatenda. And we had those sort of chats, and they were amazed to bump into me in another place and have those sort of conversations. And then the one visit when I was in Cape Town, I caught an Uber to the airport, and the driver was a Zimbabwean man. And again, we were chatting, and I said to him, asked him if he'd read the Sunrise readers, and he just about swerved off the road when I said I was C.Lewis. and he said, was looking at me and driving, and he said, thank you for everything you did for our country in having those books available. And it really was heartwarming for me, because I had not been, you know, sort of extensively in Zimbabwe, been in all sorts of other parts of the world, so I hadn't had that many occasions to bump into people who had used
it's really quite
it was really great.
It's quite moving. Of course, we go in and out of Zimbabwe. Well, we have done over the last years so many times. I remember we were crossing one of the borders, and on your immigration, you have to fill in your occupation, and I put down the author, and so the immigration official said to me, "So what do you write? You know, I see you're an author. What do you write?" So I said, well, I am one of the co-authors of the Sunrise Readers, early childhood reading books. And she said, the Sunrise Readers. And she called other people and said, this is V.Jenkins, and their children were currently reading. And you know, you and I don't feel like celebrities, but in moments like that, and in other times, because of us still in and out of Zim quite a lot, parents will bring their children to meet me now. And it's very, very humbling, actually, and quite moving. And what an honor to have had that opportunity. Yeah, well, Christine, thank you for this time together to talk about the Sunrise Readers.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and we know that when they come to your country, because of course they're being marketed all over Africa now. So anyone who's listening,
wonderful.
You will find them available. There's usually a Pearson Education, the publisher's right there, Pearson Education or Longman still in your country. You just have to Google it and find out who they are, or else look up our Facebook page, and we'll answer you. Okay.